Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Abba Kaiser. I am with the Organic Seed Alliance, and I'm chatting with Jared Zystro today about how to apply for a conference. Right now, we have our open RFP for the Organic Seed Growers Conference, but this session is going to cover just general approach if you're thinking about submitting a proposal for any conference. And Jared himself has reviewed many applications through our conference, but has also submitted his own. So we're very lucky today to have Jared Zystro. So, Jared, what are we going to cover today?
All right, thanks, Ava. Really glad to talk about this topic because I think this is something that mm, doesn't always get the consideration that it is due, and it's something that we can really use both not only to make it easier for reviewers and not only for you as a potential presenter to be more likely to be successful with your workshop submission, but really this process is one that's going to help you have better, more impactful workshops and presentations. So I tried to do a bit of just downloading my own process, or at least kind of the ideals of what I consider in both, as a potential reviewer of workshop proposals or when I'm writing them, and essentially kind of breaking it down into a few different pieces. So kind of the pieces that you would think about before you even start writing your workshop proposal, how to read the call for proposals, how to, if it's a proposal or workshop idea that's going to not just be solo but collaborative, how do you do that? Um, Kind of look at the components of that proposal and the specifics of it. Talk a tiny bit about some of the common pitfalls I've seen or maybe have been guilty of myself, and then just sort of look at what does it mean once you submit the proposal. How's that sound to you, Ebba?
That's fantastic, Jared. Yeah, sounds great. And so this is for really anybody who's considering approaching the process of writing a proposal.
That's right. That's right. Even though we have our open call for proposals, closing July 15th now, is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is certainly hopefully relevant to anyone proposing things for the Organic Seed Growers Conference, but also more broadly. So yeah, let me just go ahead and dive in and start with yeah, what to think about before you even sit down to write the proposal. And I think this is really helpful because so many of us are doing really cool work that we're really excited about and we want to share about it. And it really helps. And this is something kind of the one of the main takeaways is to think about this as from the audience's perspective. What do you want the audience to get from this? How will this benefit them? And so, the first step in that is trying to understand kind of who is the audience, who will might be attending this workshop, who often comes to this particular conference. And then, yeah, asking yourself, what specifically are you hoping to have the audience leave with? And then thinking to that point, when you're looking at submitting a proposal, why are you submitting it to this particular call for proposals? Why now? Like, are there things about the time or the topic that are specifically relevant and timely? And then even before you're starting to write, it's really helpful right away because this is an important kind of fork in the process is this going to be a solo workshop or proposal or presentation, or are you going to collaborate with folks on it? Because that's going to change how you do it. And then what kind of talk are you giving? Is it a hands-on workshop? Is it a panel, poster, field tour? All those things are also going to be things to just think about right away before you even really dig into the writing of it.
That's great, Jared. And I changed my mind. I think it actually would be helpful to see these slides if you wouldn't mind sharing them
Yeah, sure thing.
for our visual learners.
Totally. Let me put it up. Let me do slideshow. Okay. And okay, are you seeing that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go back a slide or are we
Let's
good
look
from
at
here?
that last slide one more
Yeah,
time just so folks can get a
yep,
visual.
totally.
So for
Except I'm not,
even
one second.
perf
Let me make it go
even
backwards. There we go.
before you write, these
Yeah.
are the considerations here. So the
Yeah.
audience, what will they leave with? Why now? Why this topic? Just you or more people? And what kind of a proposal are you writing?
Yes, exactly. So then the next thing before you're writing is to read the call for proposals. Most organizations, workshops, conferences will hopefully publish some details about the specifics of what they're looking for from their workshops, their presentations, and what they're looking from how you write the proposal. So a suggestion here, at least for some of us that benefit from kind of having some tactile experiences, actually to print it out and highlight the requirements. Just really get it kind of in your head about what is being asked here. A lot of times, within a conference, it's not just sort of a general workshop. Like there's specifics that are specific to this year. There might be a theme that really is being focused on in a particular year. And there may be specific workshop tracks within that cover kind of different topic areas. What are the format options? I mean, by this, like, are there kind of like more lecture style things, more panels, hands-on workshops, poster presentations? Like, what's the range of options for presentations, and what are the kind of time slots and time requirements that each of those might have? And then specific to writing the proposal, like what is the word limit? What do you have to include in the proposal? Read that, please, because it's really going to help the reviewers have a more successful time of understanding your proposal, and you'll be more likely to be successful in getting your workshop approved. And then a lot of times, a call for proposals, they may include, or they may not, but if they do include what's known as a scoring rubric, so something that says like, okay, is how much is this, if it's a hands-on workshop, it gets +5 to our score. If it, includes, a range of presenters from these different, skill sets, it gets a certain score. So if there's some kind of scoring thing, it helps to read that to understand what the priorities are that the proposal planning committee has.
This is good advice for us. Look at publishing our scoring rubric for the conference.
Yeah. Now, as I mentioned before, an early question to have is, are you going to be collaborating on this workshop? And are you going to be collaborating on writing the proposal or not? I would make the case that, collaborating often really strengthens the proposal. It strengthens the workshop. You have multiple people and ideas coming together. You're able to really bounce those ideas off each other and develop ultimately something that's stronger with wider reach. Hopefully also sort of sharing the workload of ideate, of coming up with the plan and doing the writing. There may be times when it doesn't make sense if it's just a really short session or a poster, or like you just have to get this thing in today and there's not a lot of lead time, or it's hard to coordinate a bunch of schedules. But ultimately, part of the answer to that is, as soon as you have an idea that you want to work on a proposal, reach out to people, give enough lead time to have a good process, and be able to give yourself that time to align schedules and so on. When you're identifying co-presenters, again, taking that step back and thinking about what does the audience need and what could they benefit from. Like there might be, let's say that you want to share about a particular project. There might be a lot of cool people working on that project, but what are the roles in the presentation, and what are the roles that each of the presenters is going to bring? You'd like to have people who are, good presenters, but also sort of speaking specifically to the key topics in that area and being available during Q&A to answer those. Kind of think about it as this team and their roles. In order to do it, often you're going to be having some kind of kickoff call to sort of start brainstorming and drafting. Recommend like using a shared, Google Doc or online platform just so you can write it all up and all see what's going on at the same time. You can include the bios in that same document so everyone is on board for what's being written in their bio. And then, if your proposal is accepted, then you're going to end up having some more, planning calls. You'll probably really want to and need to reconfirm, so because people's plans might change in that interim between when you applied and when you've been accepted as a proposal, and you can kind of divide up your prep time then.
Great.
Now, kind of the nitty-gritty of like what's in your proposal. This is going to be specific to each different conference, but in general, the pieces that you'll often see and things that you'll want to consider including are a title. And what I would suggest with the title is be specific and descriptive. Like, think again about like what is it like if someone's flipping through um, the the agenda and deciding if they want to go to something or not. Make it so that they understand, what your workshop is about and what they'll be getting from it as much as possible just from that title. Um, think about, likewise, with the abstract, if there's an abstract, that's a shorter piece, trying to think about the, the what, the how, the takeaway pieces, can sort of thinking about it from an audience perspective. There might be all kinds of cool stories and things that you're really interested in, but are those the things that are going to be the takeaways that you want the audience to get? And you want to really focus on that in your what you write in your proposal. Specifically, kind of even thinking to the point of like learning objectives. Like, here are the one or two or three things that if you come to my workshop at the end, you're going to learn and be able to do these things or have more understanding about this. So really thinking about it kind of from that action framework of takeaways and skills and learning. When you the format of the proposal, the format of the workshop, you want to match it to the objectives. So if it's something that requires, hands-on, components to really get those learning objectives accomplished, make sure you're proposing it as something hands-on. If it's something that really is important, where there are lots of voices in the room and it's a conversational thing, that's going to maybe be a better fit for like a panel presentation, for example. So think about, starting from your audience and those learning objectives and kind of have that feed the rest, including what the format is that you're going to propose to do it in. Yeah, think about your audience. Who is it for? The best workshops are they're not necessarily for everyone. They are specific to, most conferences will have multiple tracks going on at the same time, and different, people, depending on their expertise, depending on what their interests are, what they want out of that conference, are going to gravitate to different things. And so rather than trying to make your workshop for everyone, think about who is it for and realize that it's hopefully, the best workshops are going to be for someone or someone's. When you develop your bios, these, it depends. Like, this is a rough kind of default, so it'll depend on what the specifics are of the call for proposal, but keep them pretty short and tie them to the topic, meaning
Mm.
that, people might have a really long and interesting history, but why are they the right person to talk about this topic? Like, get the audience really like, oh my gosh, I want to learn from them because look, they've done this or they know
Mm.
this. Um,
Hmm.
and then often there is in the proposal or in the follow-up, but it's good to think about, even if it's not specifically in the proposal, think about the logistics. Is there AV? Will you have some kind of needs with your hands-on workshop for materials? Like, is the format that you're thinking of going to limit the number of people that can, participate because it needs to be really interactive or whatnot? So kind of thinking about those logistics is, again, maybe part of the requirements of the proposal, but if either which way, it's really good to think about as you're developing it.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah,
Yeah.
I recently read somebody's full bio to introduce them to a very specific group, and it was just awkward. So I feel like this is a brilliant 2 to 3 sentence bios that are directly related to why the folks are coming to the session. That's great.
So, what are some common pitfalls that I've seen that maybe I've been guilty of in the past? I think some of these are, yeah, the titles. this is my opinion, of course, but I feel like I, both as a reviewer of proposals and as someone who's considering what workshops to go to, I want to know what they are. Like, there could be like a really fun name, but if it doesn't mean anything to me, if it's just a catchy name that, is like whatever, like rainbow umbrellas or like who knows what, like something that's like, oh my gosh, what does that even mean? If I don't know, I'm probably going to keep flipping past. So trying to be, kind of the flip side of that specific title, avoid vague titles, avoid just like marketing language that doesn't tell you what you're going to get out of it. Objectives that are really just topics. What I mean by this is, again, like you want to try to communicate to the audience and care and empathize with the audience about what are they going to get out of this. And so instead of just sort of like, we have this project and it does these things, and sort of like from a really kind of like topical point of view, like always lead with the action, lead with the takeaway, lead with what people are going to be getting out of the workshop. Um, Likewise, same thing goes for abstracts. If it's something where you're talking about a project, this is really common. Someone's they're working on this really exciting project, and they want to talk about just about the project vaguely. Like it's probably not. You're going to need to boil that down and reconfigure it in a way where you're really the workshop itself is not the project. The workshop is going to be taking hopefully some lessons that you've learned out of the project, some skills that you can provide from this project, and teaching the audience, empowering the audience, creating a conversation with the audience about those rather than just it being like a report.
Nice.
Um, Likewise, if this is a topic that really needs collaboration and a diversity of voices, make sure that you don't just treat it as a solo thing. Um, so it may be, if you don't have, if the topic is one that really needs those voices and you don't have time to pull together the collaboration, then maybe that's not the right topic to propose for that particular conference.
Hmm.
It just goes without saying, but it needs to be said because it happens all the time. We're moving fast; these things are due at the end of the day, and we got to get them in. But please, 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 like fill out all the fields, stay within the word limits, have kindness for the reviewers. It's often they're getting dozens, scores, so many of these proposals, and if they have to read things that are 10 times longer than the word limits, or they have to come back to presenters to get information that wasn't included in there, or they have to go back in and like re-edit someone's um, proposal because it's like way too long to put in the program. That's all just work that most reviewers and most planners don't have. So trying to
Yeah.
really follow those formats. And then kind of finally, like not every conference and not every year is the perfect fit for a specific workshop. So while you might be really excited about something, the topic that you're excited about may not be the perfect fit for this conference this year. So, you know, think about those themes, think about those workshop tracks, and don't just sort of put in the same proposal to everywhere. Last thing I just want to share, because this often isn't considered, but I think it's really helpful to think about the submission process itself. If you can, have someone else look it over. And the reason that I say this is, and we'll talk about it in down at the later bullet here, is that the often like your submission, I mean, there might be typos fixed and whatnot, but like your submission is often what's going to end up in the program. So, take the time right now before you hit submit to have someone else look at it, see if it's saying what you thought it says, seeing if it's written the way that will be attractive to your future audience. Submit it early enough to, if there are any problems with the portal or you get rejected for little technical typos, like that, you can go back in and fix those and resubmit. And then a lot of times, just in all sort of honesty and the reality of how these processes go, you may get like an auto responder like your submission was received, and that's all you hear for a long time. Don't think that that means that there isn't a lot of work happening behind the scenes, because there is. All those proposals are being pulled together, being considered against one another, being considered within the overall kind of context of the conference. But it might be several weeks before you get a reach back in terms of, whether it was accepted or not, or what the next steps are. Like I said, yeah, if it is accepted, expect often that it is being accepted as is. So that both the content of your what you wrote may just go directly into the program, and there may be limited opportunities to make major shifts if you've come up with a new idea. Really try and plan and accept that what you're proposing is what the conference is accepting and is what's going to happen. Um, if declined, if there's a possibility, and this doesn't always happen, again, kind of based on people's capacity, which is limited, if there's a chance to get feedback so that you can improve your proposal for the next time that you submit, that can be a really valuable tool for you. So that was basically the best I could think about in terms of unloading what I think about when I'm writing and reviewing proposals. But I don't know, Abba, if there's anything else, questions that you have or you think that people might have as they're um, putting together proposals.
That's fantastic, Jared. Thanks for boiling it all down for us. And I didn't really realize how technical really this process is. You have this beautiful dream of an idea, but you really have to make sure that it not only resonates on a thematic level with the conference that you're applying to, but is also sort of like surgically fit into the boxes and the tracks and with all of the people that you need to bring on board for that. So thanks for laying it out so clearly for us. Um, can I ask you a personal question
Yeah, Abba.
around what have been some of your favorite proposals to review from the conference and why?
Oh boy, my brain is like a steel sieve to like. I don't know if I can think of a
Not a
specific proposal.
specific
Okay,
one, but just
yeah,
in general, like what do you
yeah,
like to see when
yeah.
proposals come through?
Okay, yeah, I'll share this. I mean, the things that I really like to see are, yeah, when it is clear or feels clear that there's a real consideration of like that this information is being provided or this workshop is being designed in a way that like, oh yeah, people are going to be able to take this and use this. This is going to be useful. And so that's, yeah, both in terms of like the content of what the workshop is, but how the proposal is laid out, help, to make that really clear that it's like, oh yeah, like at the end of this session, like you're going to know how to clean, chicory seed. And it's like, oh my gosh, really? I want to do that. So that, yeah, the specificity, the kind of, yeah, the having real outcomes from the workshop. And frankly, also just like for me, if it's something that's kind of novel, that's like something that I haven't seen as much before, but is interesting, because
Mhm.
I've been going to conferences for a really long time. And while it's always interesting to hear from new voices and new perspectives, I do love it when it's also like a topic that I just haven't come across before.
Thank you for that. And one more question of just like, what would you say to someone who looks at the RFP and says, "Oh, this is way too much language," or "It's way too technical for me. I feel intimidated," or "Maybe this isn't a conference for me." What would you say to those folks?
I mean, what I would say, and I know we just like went through like all of these things, and maybe it feels intimidating, like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do all of this? I would say, I guess a couple of things. One is that we have multiple routes to get people's input. So there is, in addition to like the RFP itself, we have a way for, if you've got an idea that you want to suggest that's important, but you don't feel like you're prepared to like put it together as a full RFP, there's a separate process to be able to submit those ideas. Um, Likewise, kind of if it's feeling like the um, the lift to like put together a full proposal and presentation is high. We have, kind of there are different formats. So we can, there are, poster presentations, things like that that you can kind of get your feet wet with both the process of applying, but also like of presenting on this information. And you'll probably learn a lot and can, the next time be more prepared to do a more robust proposal and workshop.
So maybe think about a lightning talk if you're just,
Yes.
if this is your first proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Anything else you want folks to know?
I really the Seed Growers Conference, one of the strengths of the Seed Growers Conference, the kind of make the pitch specifically for proposing to that, is that it really has been and continues to be a community built process and conference. And so it's only going to be as good as what you all bring to it. So please,
Mm.
please, please, if you've got an idea and you're feeling on the fence about whether that's something that is interesting or not, like it really depends on all of you to make the conference, a success and impactful and useful to you. So yeah, take a chance.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jared. Thanks for your time today, and we'll see you all in the RFP. See ya.
All right, cool. Thanks, Eva.